Welcome back to the Big Blue Breakdown. I'm Paul Dottino as we go through the New York Giants Gameballs and Gassers edition for their 33-15 loss on Monday Night Football against the New England Patriots in Foxboro. Now, this is one of those days where practically nothing went right. In fact, it's only the third time this season as the Giants have now fallen to 2-11 on the campaign, where they were just dominated basically from start to finish. Now, typically, there's always one play in these kinds of games that kind of encapsulates everything. Well, the way the season has gone for the Giants, to be honest, this particular special teams play almost encapsulates everything. It seems like the Giants have done a remarkable job of doing the impossible. In this case, there was a botched field goal that almost seemed impossible to the point where I don't even know if we can describe it for you properly unless you actually saw it. It's a 17-10 Patriots lead in the second quarter. Younghoe Koo is lined up and about to kick a field goal that would bring the Giants within one score. It's a 47-yard attempt, and if it's good, it certainly looks like it could stop the bleeding and put the Giants at least in reasonable position on the scoreboard. Now, the ball is snapped back to holder Jamie Gillan, the punter. Now, according to Koo, as he described it, and as interim head coach Mike Kafka described it, the ball comes back to Gillan, and the bottom of the ball slipped a little as Koo was driving forward to make the kick. So, in Koo's words, he pulled up because the ball was not placed in stationary, even though Gillan tried to get it down correctly. And so Koo said that he pulled up a bit with his leg and he wound up kicking his toe into the artificial surface instead of actually kicking the ball. So Gillan, obviously, with nothing else he could possibly do and nobody running out from the special teams unit as if it was a fake, Gillan just picked up the ball and then tried to get away with it. And it went down officially on the NFL game book and stat sheet as a sack for the Patriots. Certainly one of the most unusual sacks that you will probably ever see. But the aborted play, in all honesty, is really kind of how things have just, the impossibles become the possible for the New York Giants this season. So we start out the report simply by giving you a tenor, or should I say a flavor, for exactly what this game was all about. Obviously, two other huge headlines came out of this game before we even get to some of the positives and negatives. Jaxson Dart was able to return after spending 2 weeks in the concussion protocol by the league. He did return, and yes, he did get sacked once. The Patriots were officially credited with 7 quarterback hits. That's not a wonderful number. The good news is, even though Dart did take one specifically very vicious hit along the sideline, he came through the game okay. He did, it appeared to be, at least looked like he was a little bit more cautious. Now, on the play in the first quarter, when he ran down the sideline looking for a first down, which he also described in the postgame show, that he was trying to get the first down. He came awfully close to it, didn't quite get it. He was whacked very, very hard on the sideline. One of 3 hits in particular in the first half that were borderline, if not over the line, questionable by the Patriots. In fact, it was Christian Ellis who came over and absolutely plowed full force into Dart. May have even potentially, and it was really tough to see, but may have even lowered his head just a bit and hit the side of Dart's head as he ran right through him and literally sent him flying horizontally into the Giants bench area, to the point where the Giants had a little bit of a skirmish against Ellis and the Patriots, taking exception to the way Dart was treated. Now, there was no penalty against Dart on the play. In fact, there was a retaliation penalty, personal foul, called against Theo Johnson as he tried to stand up for his quarterback, which, once again, the result just typical of how things just went south for the Giants. Even though they're standing up for their player, they wound up not only not getting the first down, but getting burned with a penalty. Fortunately, Dart was not injured on the play, and he was able to continue throughout the rest of the night without any issue. Dart did say he was trying to get the first down and said he'll always try to get the first down. On other instances during the course of the game, in fact, he was credited with 4 rushing plays. So not, he was not a big time runner in this game, but he was credited with 4 rushing plays for 20 yards, including a long of 12. He did scramble some, maybe not quite as much as we had seen him in the past. He did seem to try to control how he went down and did hit the turf in a much safer manner and a little bit easier. So that certainly does bear noting at the top of this particular program. Also, we have to note the other serious hits that certainly made people shake their heads on a special teams play in the second quarter on a punt return by Gunnar Olszewski. Christian Ellis wound up forcing a fumble. Coming in, again, it appeared as though he lowered the angle of his head. Helmet to helmet, absolutely bashed into Olszewski so badly that there was significant damage to the side of his helmet. Olszewski was momentarily knocked unconscious, fumbled the football away to the Patriots, and New England recovered. Again, there was no flag issued on the play. And then the third time, which you could talk about certainly walking on the boundary in terms of decency, there was a play where Jalen Hawkins crushed Theo Johnson. Double coverage, helmet-to-helmet hit. This came in the second quarter along the sideline. Johnson unable to come up with the catch, but the helmet-to-helmet hit was called. That flag resulted in a 15-yard personal foul against the Patriots. Again, on one of 3, let's just say, overly aggressive, to be very kind and a little bit on the light side of things, hits by the Patriots. It was clear that there was a message and there was a very strong attempt by the Patriots, who talked about it after the game, that they came out with a purpose, and they certainly did show it and deliver it during the course of that first half. And the Giants simply were never really in this game and never recovered. The other huge item came out of the game is that we know Abdul Carter did not play in the first quarter. And, in all honesty, this is going down as, according to Carter and his teammates, as some scheduled team appointment. What specifically it was is still a bit shady, or should I say sketchy. It was something that was scheduled, a team issue or team function, whether it was a class or a film study or a walkthrough, whatever it was is irrelevant. Something that was scheduled. He did not fulfill that obligation. He admitted to it. An interim head coach, Mike Kafka, decided that he would have to pay the price and be taught a lesson This was the second time now in 3 weeks that he could not get his timing straight, and as a result, had to sit down and miss some snaps. And so this was an issue, of course, after the game. Carter did acknowledge that he had made a mistake once again, that he didn't like that he had to take a penalty, an internal penalty. But this is all part of the rookie's learning process. Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence also talked about it. The rookie needs to step up and do what he needs to do. However, they also did say he is a rookie, and hard-headed rookies will sometimes continue to make mistakes until at some point they don't do those mistakes anymore. So those were a couple of the obvious headlines that came out of the game. What came out of the game that was positive, if anything at all? Well, the Giants did rush 27 times for 111 yards, just over 4 yards a carry. It was a decent job by the running game, to be honest. Devin Singletary turned out to be the lead dog in this fight. 12 carries for a season-high 68 yards. Had a 22-yard direct snap run for a touchdown as the Giants came back at the very beginning of the third quarter and made it a 2-touchdown game. Singletary wound up getting the bulk of the snaps in the ground attack, or at least he was the featured back. Tyrone Tracy had gotten hurt, injured his hip during the course of the game, had to come out, did not return, although in the locker room afterwards did seem to be okay and said that he was going to be all right. Also, something good, Darius Slayton caught a 30-yard touchdown pass, athletic move, weaved through the defense, came up with touching the end zone. It was his first touchdown catch since the next to last game of the regular season last year against the Indianapolis Colts. Jaxson Dart, 17 of 24, 139 yards and 1 touchdown pass. That went to Slayton. It was not an overly productive day for Dart. He wasn't awful, but certainly a game that I'm sure he would like to have performed better in. But certainly with the avalanche of things that went against the Giants in this game, you certainly could not point a finger to Jaxson Dart as somebody who underperformed. The Patriots gained 114 yards rushing or 119 yards rushing, I believe, on 29 carries. That is not a horrible number. Again, we talked about the Giants averaging just over 4 yards a carry. Well, the Patriots averaged just over 4 yards a carry as well. There were too many runs by Henderson, who had Trevion Henderson, 11 carries for 67 yards, 6 yards a pop. Way too much. The Giants did much better against Stevenson, only 40 yards on 12 carries, and May with 12 yards on 6. Of course, there was the kneel down at the end of the game. So the numbers are tad deceiving, but it was not as big of a gouging running attack against the Giants defense as we have seen throughout the course of the season. And in the red zone, the Patriots with only 1 touchdown on 5 trips inside the red zone. So that's something the Pats have had trouble with all season long, and the Giants continued to give them issues in that regard. Now, in terms of the game balls, I'm just going to tell you, let's split this up a little bit because we already went over some of the things that were at least halfway decent out of this game. We're just not going to give any game balls out to the defense or the special teams. We'll simply give Devin Singletary a game ball for his season high in yardage on offense. He did run the ball effectively. It was methodical. He certainly tried to keep the Giants as balanced as much as possible. And you had to smile at the very least at his direct snap. Jaxson Dart had lined up as a wide receiver on the play, and Singletary took the direct snap and rambled around the right side into the end zone for a score. Now, as far as the Gassers are concerned, well, we're going to give them to everybody. It's that simple. A dominant performance by the Patriots. Everybody on offense, defense, and special teams can run the Gassers. Let's simply go over the general negatives that would make this situation occur. 17-0 Patriots at the end of the first quarter. The second score, the score that was sandwiched between two field goals, a 94-yard punt return for a touchdown by Marcus Jones, the former Pro Bowl and All-Pro kick returner for the Patriots. Quite honestly, he looked very, very explosive on this night. In fact, every time he lined up to return a kick, you got the feeling he had a chance to make one go. Giants gave up a total of 124 yards on 3 punt returns, including the long one for that first quarter score. Patriots also had 6 kickoff returns for 79 yards. Again, over 25 yards a return. That's not the way the Giants special teams usually play. This was by far the worst performance of the Giants special teams this season in a year where they have been mostly pretty darn good. We already told you about the field goal attempt that was botched. New England was 6 of 13 on third down conversions. That is good enough for 46%. And for the game, they easily could have been well over 400 yards, but with the kneel downs at the end, they wind up with 395 yards of total offense. This was just overall a really, really rough performance for the Giants. In the first half, the Patriots offensively had 3 field goals, 2 touchdowns, and 1 punt. So they put up points on 5 of 6 of their first half possessions. In the second half, the Patriots had a missed field goal that was wide left. They had a made field goal, and they had 1 punt. Of their 3 legitimate possessions, then there was a kneel down at the end of the game. So the Giants only forced 2 punts over the course of the night. There was 1 missed field goal and 6 scoring drives by New England. So that comes as in a total of 9 true possessions. It was just a very, very long day for the New York Giants. And quite honestly, the guys talked about it afterwards. They failed in all 3 phases of the game. Interim head coach Mike Kafka said it himself. Obviously, not a great debut as a defensive coordinator for outside linebackers coach Charlie Bullen, who did inherit the job this past week. Simply put, Coach Kafka said he'll just have to get better and he'll have to grow from this. It was Bullen's first ever opportunity at calling the plays as a defensive coordinator. So the Giants have now lost 13 consecutive road games. If you bridge this back to the 2024 season, they have dropped 7 straight games overall this year since that 34-17 beating of the Philadelphia Eagles in prime time back at MetLife Stadium on October the 9th. Yes, that's how long it's been. And so they will now finally have their bye week. Yes, the Giants finally get to take a weekend off. And then the following weekend, they will be home against another one of the league's disappointing teams, the Washington Commanders, in another battle of the NFC East rivals. You'll recall Washington beat the Giants in their place in the first game of the season when Russell Wilson was still quarterbacking for New York. Well, that'll do it for this edition of the Big Blue Breakdown, the Gameballs and Gassers edition for the New York Giants 33-15 loss in Foxboro to the New England Patriots. Keep things tuned here to the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and media network. For all of your Giants news, I'm Paul Dottino.